Would like to thank you, Gurudev, 'cause your children couldn't thank you enough.
So, a natural thing to talk about is the meaning of the words Guru and Purnima. Purnima means full moon. Guru means a lot of things. It's the name of the planet Jupiter that is called also the great benefactor, where in comparison, Venus is the lesser but still benefactor, parallel. But Guru also means heavy, and the planet Jupiter is the biggest planet, the heaviest, even though it's a gas planet mainly. Um, then there is the idea that Guru in this context is a teacher. And why is the title teacher connected to the idea of being heavy? It's because you think about the teacher as heavy in knowledge. Then there is a spectrum of who is a guru. There is the very strict Vedic or let's say Hindu perspective of who is a guru or who could be a guru. And there is the broader spectrum where any one of us or anything could be a guru. It's more of a mindset if you're capable of get learning from whatever happens in your life. So I will talk about the relationship between teacher and master, or student and master, or mentor and student, because there has been done quite some research in this field. And there are some, what I would call laws of nature that is very useful to know about, because if you don't know about them, that will create a shock somewhere in your life, and that's not doesn't need to be. And I will also talk about possible misconceptions and miscalculations regarding Jyotish, the different time periods of evolution. That the idea that we at the moment is in the middle of Kali Yuga, that is a very difficult period, but it's the shortest period, even though it's very, very long still. And that the advantage of Kali Yuga is that it's very much easier to get enlightened in Kali Yuga. And I will talk about signs that says that maybe we're not in a Kali Yuga, and so on. And I will also talk about the concept of being a true believer or a free thinker. Because one thing with this day, Guru Purnima, is that it's said that on this day, you're allowed to ask any weird question to your master or your guru, and he is obliged to answer. So I've been a teacher of Bhagavad Gita for 50 years. Actually, it was on the 25th of May, 1975, that I was made a teacher. So it's a bit more than 50 years. So in a way, I could speak of both being the master, the teacher, the mentor, and also being the student. So I take the freedom to do that and talk about it from my own experiences. Okay, we can talk about the Western research that has been done regarding mentors and students, where it has been clear that at a certain phase in the development of the relationship between the mentor, the teacher, the guru, and the student, there will be a crisis. And to me, that seems to be kind of a law of nature. It's not that the student is bad in any way, or the mentor or teacher or guru is bad in any way. It's just the law of nature. So if you know about the law of nature, all the laws of nature, whatever it is, if it's about gravity, or if it's about wind velocity, or the currents of the oceans, or whatever it is, if it's chemical laws or whatever it is, it's very advantageous to know about these laws, because then you can understand and parade whatever is going to happen. So the mechanics between this potential conflict between the mentor and the student is when the student has come up so much in knowledgeability and experience that they come in some close vicinity to the level that the master, the teacher, the mentor has, then the student tend to be aware of contradictions, glitches, something that is not that super perfect, that contrasts very much to your previous experience of the mentor, the master, the guru, the teacher, of being flawless without any fault or so. So there is a kind of a crack in the picture of how the student perceive the mentor. This is kind of a natural law. And if you know about this beforehand, then you can be prepared to handle it. And it's very good if both the mentor and the student knows about this, because it's very, very good. It's very constructive. It's very peace creating to go through this process, because when you have got through this process with the right knowledge, without blaming either one of you, seeing it as a law of nature, then you will be able to cooperate on a somewhat even level. We don't know. I've never heard any kind of episodes or stories or anything about, let's say, how this turned out between Gurudev and his master, Krishnananda. But it's said that in some stage, Krishnananda said that Gurudev was on the same level as him, and that he also guided or suggested to Gurudev that he should be more available to the ordinary public. So anyway, speaking about myself, I've initiated about 1,000 people in this Bhagavad Gita. And I've actually experienced this situation where some of my students have looked up to me so much, and then I got to know them more on a personal level, and some years went by, and they somehow realized that I was not totally perfect. I made some, let's say, wrong decisions or whatever it was. Whether it was like correct observations of me as a person, or if it was just a very subjective experience, I cannot really say. But we managed to get over that, even though it resulted in that we were not having contact for many years. So this is something that any teacher of this method or other teachers, whatever, can see that it will happen. So it may be good to know about it, because it could be also very flattering when some of your students idealize you and put you on a pedestal. I don't think Marishi ever said anything about this phenomena, but there are other yogis who talked about it. So Osho, for example, he said something about everything that goes up is destined to come down. And if we measure and evaluate the time it takes for someone, because this is also applicable on different fashions and events historically, because there are trends that will go up and down. So if we measure some stability and some uniqueness in Mauritius and the TM movement, and so it's quite surprising that it took almost 50 years for this phenomena to manifest more widespread in the TM movement. Okay, so this is the thing that could be discussed and talked a lot about. Anyway, since I'm talking about these things as in the terms of natural laws that are kind of unavoidable and no one's fault, then we can talk about another principle that I've seen. I think there is some research on it, but I have not seen it. But my experience is that when you have with people to do with people and money or the worth of money or valuables, whatever on whatever level, there is also guaranteed to be conflicts. And it's as I said, it's more like a law of nature than that one party is bad and the other is good. But if you're unprepared of this and you think that we are so very good partners and everything is so fine and everything that we do is so marvelously good, then it will come as a shock, and you will easily, one party or both, often both, will feel that they are betrayed by the other party. And that's very sad, because there are actually techniques. I will not go into how those techniques work, but there are techniques to help people look at these things, and then when they go a bit deeper into it, they get very surprised that both parties have the same regrets and the same feelings, because they thought that they were the only ones. And then we can relate this to a saying that says that no one is enlightened until all is enlightened. And I've spoken about this before, that there are at least two interpretations of this. One is the more literal one, that as long as not everyone is totally and fully enlightened, no one can be totally fully enlightened, even though, let's say, many can be very, very close to totally fully enlightened. If we also with enlightened mean fully perfect, with no flaw, no mistakes, no bad sides of their personality, and so on. So that's one interpretation. The other interpretation is that when you get these experiences of enlightenment, whether they are more permanent or more for a shorter period of time, you often discover that not only you are enlightened, but everyone else is enlightened somehow. So you can be very surprised when you realize that all those people you perceive as also enlightened, they don't realize that they are enlightened. So now, now I actually experience some level of transcendence here, so I kind of lose my perspective. So I may take some few seconds to focus. So now Ingmar is coming, and his son. His son is has his birthday today. Yes. Yeah. So let's greet Sebastian, Ingmar's son.
Thank you very much. We are here for the cake.
Yeah, we can see. Maybe you can see that. These are our gurus. These are our gurus.
Yeah.
Our masters. Okay, that was interesting. Okay, so I was talking about possible miscalculations regarding Jyotish. And one part of Jyotish is these time periods, very, very long time periods, thousands of years. There are four of them, Sat Yuga, and so on. Sat Yuga is the longest, and Kali Yuga the shortest. And we are supposed to be in Kali Yuga now, and that is the reason is that everything is very bad in Kali Yuga. The only thing that is really good is that it's so much easier to get enlightened in Kali Yuga. It's like you don't need to be super perfect and sattvic and everything. You can still be enlightened. Now, I will relate this also to something that Maharishi answered many journalists the questions in the beginning of the movement. The journalists were asking Maharishi who would succeed him. And he said that he was creating thousands of Maharishis. So in all humility, I have to regard myself as somewhat a Maharishi, as all of you here. And also, if we go back to the theme of guru in the sense of being a teacher, there are other names also. Acharya is also a name for being a teacher. So Shankaracharya means a teacher in the tradition of Shankara. So there is the general meaning of being a teacher, being a guru. But as I understand it, if we look at the tradition, the more strict policies in the tradition, not everyone is allowed or qualified to call themselves a guru. Gurudev was definitely qualified to call himself a guru, not only a guru, but a Sadguru, as Sad implies to true guru, supreme guru. And those requirements has to do also if you're a Brahmin and you're so very studied in the Vedas and all of these things and should be extremely enlightened and all of that. So in one end, some may say that Maharishi was not qualified to call himself a guru. That's an interesting fact. But in the other end of the spectrum, everyone is a teacher. Even small children can be extremely good teachers, and so on. So, and if we go back to the yugas, and if Kali Yuga may be a misconception, because the explanation of why the yugas could be miscalculated is that when the Pandava brothers had conquered the Kauravas, and after the big war in Mahabharata, they got older and finally they decided to draw back, go to the Himalayas for the few years that were left of their life in the body. They gave away all their fortunes, including all the cows and all that. And then the story goes that the Brahmins, instead of being Brahmins and doing the recitations and keeping the knowledge straight and clean and so on, they had to attend to the taking care of the cows and so on. So they kind of became peasants. And then the knowledge, the mathematical knowledge of how to calculate the yugas was misunderstood. And that would indicate that we are not in the Kali Yuga now, but the Dwapara Yuga. And the indication of that could be all the technical advancement that has taken place for some 100 years now. And that's a very interesting perspective, because if we talk about this being a true believer, being a devotee, and being a devotee is a very essential part in the relationship between the guru, the master, and the disciple. But it's also very essential for the disciple to cultivate the capacity of thinking for themselves, being reasonable. So at that some time, there will be a gradual and natural transition from being a true believer to being a true thinker, true knower, and so on. And this is a process that could be kind of troublesome, so that you may have good reason to you have great use of help in this matter. Well, we could break the mold and open up for the possibility of questions on these subjects and other things, if you want me to talk about connected to Guru Purnima or anything interesting. Okay?
In the Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter and 45th thing, where Maharishi writes and comments about the nature of the transcendental meditation technique. There is a sentence where he writes, "The teacher is teaching from his level of consciousness, and the student is receiving from his level of, or her level of consciousness." Could that be understood as the kind of conflict you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a very good example of this phenomenon. So it's a big, well, I say problem, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's even a solution in a way. But when you're a teacher, if you've been teaching a lot, whether you are entitled to call yourself a guru or just a teacher, doesn't matter, because you will get a habit of thinking that anything could be explained to anybody. And there is a lot of truth in that. But still, there are a lot of things that cannot be understood or are very hard to understand without direct experience. And this relates to, let's say, one thing that Maharishi talked about. He said that knowledge in the books stays in the books. And he also talked very much about direct personal experience, and especially regarding more subtle states of consciousness. And this I have realized personally more during the last year or two. As some of you know, I've developed a special kind of technique. I developed it almost 40 years ago, and it's a way of curing school hate among pupils in school, difficult students. I developed that method about 40 years ago, and it took me many years to understand that I wouldn't been able to develop this method without my knowledge and experience as a teacher, but also other technical things that I know about, that I've experienced my own in that way, that in that same level, there are things that you need to do and participate in and experience to understand that they even exist. So it's only the few last years that I realized how difficult many people have to understand this. And I would say that this will apply to the concept of transcending. The reason why many people are not drawn to learning to meditate is that they have no idea of the concept of transcending. It's very, very hard to explain what it is. That's one of those things you need to experience to realize that it exists. And you not only need to have the experience that it exists, you need to have it repeated enough times so that you begin to realize the value of it. And then you need to have this experience repeated in enough times and for enough duration to realize the need to teach this to other people. And when I realized this regarding my special method, I was very much surprised, and I looked upon it as a crack in the appearance of me as a teacher, that I hadn't been realizing that this very long ago, because I thought that I could explain anything to anyone. That's an exaggeration, of course, but that's how I could explain it to myself. So this thing that you're pointing at, Roland, is definitely what we are talking about.
There's a comment from William Faustin. Sri Yukteswar and Yogananda's guru says we are going into Dvarapa Yuga. Dvarapa Yuga. Did you mention this just before?
No, I didn't mention it, but I know about it. And this is one of the Vedic experts that is pointing to this miscalculation. I could go into much more details about the signs of when the Kali Yuga started. I don't think I will do it now, but there are signs in the days we have now that contradict those signs. And one of the, well, I could say something about it. One of the things is the emancipation of women. That in the old days before Kali Yuga, it was self-evident that women decided over their own bodies, and it was sacred when a woman had ovulation, that it was up to her what man she would have sex with. And that was totally ingrained in the culture, so that even married couples and so on observe this. And then there was also the idea that, as I understand it, Mauricio said something about it, that the nervous system of women are so much more delicate than men's brutal and robust nervous system. So women is more likely and is more easily get enlightenment than men. And then the idea was with married couples that the woman attended the man while he was meditating for, let's say, 12 years to ensure that he would reach enlightenment. Because then it was an easy thing to her, if she hadn't already been enlightened, to become enlightened. So one of the stories of the signs of Kali Yuga coming was about a couple, and they had a son, and the son approached the age of 16, and they were Brahmins. And it said when a Brahmin person reached the age of 16, whatever he utters, whatever sentence he says, cannot be transgressed, could not be taken back. So what happened was that they were living, this couple with a son, were living in the woods in solitude. So the son hadn't met a lot of other people, so he didn't know about this custom. So his father was sitting in samadhi, and his mother had her period and was fertile. And then there came a stranger, and his mother and the stranger had sex. that was supposed to be sacred at that time. But the boy, who had just become 16, didn't know about this. So he thought that this was very bad. It was very bad of her mother to do this, especially when his father was in Samadhi and he wasn't aware of it and everything. So the boy banned the women generally that they should afterwards be under the thumb, under the control of the man. So they couldn't decide for themselves. Then what happened when the father woke up from Samadhi and heard about this, because the mother, of course, got aware of it. The father was very angry with the son because this was so totally against the culture. But they couldn't do anything about it because the son had reached the age of 16 when a word of a Brahmin would stay true. So that was one sign that Kali Yuga started. So that is to say that parallel to all the big technical and scientific advances that shouldn't be resembling the Kali Yuga, all these technical things that we have is one sign that we are not in the Kali Yuga. And also the emancipation of women is also such a sign. And that means also that it's kind of sad to look at certain tendencies regarding India and Hinduism, all the repression of women still occurring. Maybe with the idea that is Kali Yuga. So, from being a true believer that tend to be more and more Indian oriented, kind of, to becoming more of a independent thinker. And this based on that with your more coordinated nervous system, with your expanded consciousness and so on, your evaluation, your perception and everything, your capacity for reasoning will be so great that any kind of misunderstanding will not hold. So, Yuktisvara, Sri Yuktisvara, Yogananda's master, was one of them who brought this up.
May I ask you one more question about the Guru Purnima? The role of Guru Purnima, as it is now on the 10th of July this year, with this full moon, this symbolics. Can you elaborate on this, please? Maybe it's
I said something about it in the beginning, that Purnima means full moon, and Guru is the most fortunate full moon of the year. It has this name because Guru also means Jupiter, and Jupiter astrological is the great benefactor, where Venus is the also benefactor, but not that great as Jupiter. So there is something about this that has to do, I suppose it's connected to the sunlight, the part of the year where the most light is prevalent, and light and knowledge is equivalent. So I think that is why they have decided that this special full moon should be the full moon of the Guru. I'm sure that other people like Bob or even Ingemar may be able to say more about this in detail. But that is about what I could say right now, I think. Well, anyway, there is one thing that is also connected to my own experiences, because I think when I became a team teacher in 1975, it was the first time that Marishi mentioned this age of enlightenment thing. And in one perspective, we are very far away from any age of enlightenment. In another perspective, we are quite close to an age of enlightenment. In a way, we are in the middle of age of enlightenment. But those, because if you're not just a true believer, you're a free thinker, because I think that transcending and all these things that this knowledge brings is also the capacity, the increased capacity of free thinking, parallel also to the capacity for devotion. Because as I understand it, our Gurudev had both these qualities. This quality of extreme, precise, exact free thinking, and the quality of deep devotion. So it's not a contradiction between devotion and deep knowledge and deep free thinking. It's a matter of transparency and also about authenticity. So you miss the point if you're just kind of a true believer. But that will take care of itself, of course. Anyway, what I'm coming to is that there was some point many years ago now that I realized that the age of enlightenment is in you, yourself, in your own level of consciousness. That there is a level of consciousness that can be experienced under any circumstance where you perceive this place here where we're living as heaven on earth. And that is the basis for the age of enlightenment, as I perceive it. And something a bit funny happened, because I was thinking that you other people would come up with questions. I was not thinking that I would come up with a question, but I have come up with a question. Because I've had quite a few of these, let's say, lectures, ITMA lectures. Some have been recorded and some not. And the latest one, besides this, was about personal experiences of Gurudev. There are a lot of people, team teachers and meditators, who have had such experiences. I will not go into that now, but the experience of having that lecture was that it created a silence that was perceptible among the listeners. And one of those were not the team teacher who taught me, but the husband of the team teacher who taught me, because they, as a couple, had the course together. So I've had a close relationship to both of them since the beginning. I started with Bhavatit Jan. And he said that he's living in the US nowadays, and so the time was early in the morning, and he was about to eat breakfast. But when I started to talk about this topic, everything stopped, and there was just a big silence. He couldn't continue with his breakfast until afterwards. There was, of course, a few questions, and there has been some few questions also here today. So that's one reflection and a question. If there was, I have the sense that we have together created some special silence. So my question is, am I right with this, or is it a misunderstanding, or a partial understanding, or something? Just for the fun of it. And the other reflection is that I'm a pensioner now. I've been a teacher for many, many years, usually ordinary school teacher and so on. And then we often have 40 minutes lectures or terms. So it's kind of natural for me to speak for 40 minutes or something like that. Now, being a teacher is not always having lectures, but when you have that period of time. And I'd like to say also that I'm about to complete a big work that should be somehow, somewhere published in an ordinary book form. It's possible to get it already now in digital form. It's 100 chapters or letters, with each chapter in a format of about 10 A4 pages, that in a printed like a pocketbook would be about double the amount of pages. So it would be about 2,000 pages, or 140 minutes lessons or lectures, because I have done this voice recordings with my own voice, so I've read it, and so it's possible to listen to, and I've got very good reactions with this. There is actually a lot of amazement. People think it's funny and so on. And if they don't think it's funny, it can be very useful to listen to if you want to fall asleep easily. So I open up for those who are interested to get to know more about this for free. I made this work also as a parallel thing to what we are not allowed to use anymore, and that is the SCI course, when in regard to becoming a teacher of Bhavatit Jan, or whatever you call it. And one ambition with this book that is called Stars and Sea, the series of Stars and Sea, that the idea is that every 10th chapter would be one separate book. So it's kind of 10 books, and maybe it will be a few more. The idea was that this material could be used as a preparation for becoming a meditation teacher. And I've talked about this a little bit during our planning meetings in ITMA, but I've not talked about it a lot for quite some time. So my question is this: about the silence. Someone else has felt this silence.
I think there's a silence that is always present.
Yeah.
And whether or not we're aware of it depends on how absorbed we are in the objects of perception and in the thoughts, in the memories, the various aspects of the mind. So when we have an opportunity to think about subtler or more spiritual matters, then the silence seems to come closer to the surface. But of course, it's always there. And it's our subjective state that depends that specifies whether we are aware of it or not.
Well, that resembles what is said, that everyone is enlightened from the beginning, has always been, will always be, even though we don't know it. Something like that. There is also saying that the absolute is only absolute as long as you're more familiar with the relative.
Well, of course, Maharishi said that the absolute and the relative are both reality, and that the full development of a human being is 200%, both the relative and the absolute. And so he talks about the fifth state of consciousness being the self-realization, the realization of that absolute very intimately from the level of the absolute, that is, the absolute recognizing itself. And then in the seventh state of consciousness, the state of unity, seeing that it's all actually one. And that's a more advanced state. And when we know that that state is there, we can be open to that state. And we say state, but actually these are stages of returning to who we actually are. As you said, we're all enlightened in a sense. We all have that capability, but it's heavily overshadowed by the stresses of our times. So Maharishi talked about Kali Yuga, and that this is a bright light in the long period of Kali Yuga, but I think he could have been speaking metaphorically, that this is a time of thousands of years in which humans are fighting and warfare and filled with stress of all different types, so that a lot of the truth is hidden. So
Yeah, and
that's
we need to have this long and deep experience of transcending to realize what he really was talking about, kind of. And it's something to be very grateful that we kind of now can talk about it. Okay, I think I've got the answer to my question. So is there anything more anyone wants to say or ask or whatever? Anyway, I will thank you all for attending this meeting. I hope you have enjoyed it. And quite possibly, I, as all the other ITMA teachers, will come back some other time and talk about some other topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Bengt. Thank you very much, Bengt, for this very, very interesting and very enlightening talk today about this topic of Guru Purnima. And this is an occasion since this day, which is 3 days ago, is an opportunity to be reminded of the value of the teacher and the master of meditations and the role of a guru. And we are all happy to have been connected to the great Guru Ramananda Saraswati and the tradition. And in ITMA, the International Teachers of Meditation Association, of which I'm having the honor to be the chairman, and Abna being the CEO, I'm happy to add that your talk, Bengt, is also giving a chance for those who want to contribute to work on a new age of enlightenment by inspiring people to become teachers of meditation with ITMA. Thank you very much, Bengt, and thank you all you who have been attending today. Jai Gurudev.